Going back to Uzbekistan, there are some great expectations from the United States. I'm sure you heard many of those when you were there. And I know that Ambassador Spradlin in Tashkent constantly engages both political and non-governmental, part of Uzbekistan. What are some of the things that stand out for you that makes you, let's say, think of new ways of doing things? Because in many ways, this is such a unique opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. Such a unique opening.
I think on the economic side, there are clear possibilities for us to increase our engagement. American companies are extremely interested with the currency convertibility. It's now possible for them to repatriate profits. And so I think you're going to see continued interest in growing the trade relationship. But I think an area that's really most untapped is people to people and developing the ties between our countries. And whether some of those are business ties, but I'm talking about students, about professionals, about training programs, about non-governmental organizations. I think in Uzbekistan we still have a very formalized way of communicating with one another. It's that stems from from the Soviet Union days even, and so moving to a relationship that's built more on shared interests, on trust. As we build up trust between our countries that we can work together and work together effectively, I think we're going to see a real blossoming of personal relations between our countries, and those are such important bridges of understanding and of reinforcement of the goals that we seek to achieve. And there we have a lot of catching up to do, but I attended at the National Library a class, for instance, an English language class that we were sponsoring. The students are terrific, and they so much are part of this international world. Uzbek nationalists, but looking to make ties, with their neighbors and with the global community. And we need to tap that energy and dynamism and idealism of the younger generation in both of our societies.
I can totally imagine after this interview we'll be getting a lot of questions from our audiences. Oh, are we going to have new exchange programs? Are some of those programs that closed down coming back? Because there is a lot of enthusiasm when it comes to education.
I would say reach out to the American Embassy, to our public affairs section and our counseling, education counseling section. But we very much want to restore some of the programs we used to do, to look for new areas where we can work together in creating partnerships. We've had programs, our International Visitor Program, where we take, it's not just students, we take government officials on thematic visits to the United States to see how we do it here or how we do it wrong here. You can learn from a good experience and from a bad experience. But I've always felt that diplomacy is most successful when you have a common understanding and a common bond. And I'm always struck by how a glimpse into one another's society. So whether it's American students coming to Uzbekistan, American diplomats coming to Uzbekistan, American businessmen coming, suddenly the possibilities become clearer and the excitement is generated to do more. And so I think today we're seeing a lot more excitement. People are very interested in what's happening in Uzbekistan, and so how do we tap that? How do we build on it? Because certainly from the Department of State perspective, we're very excited about the opportunities. And I think over the next year, this is a real window for us to climb through, and I know we have good partners in Tashkent to work with.
We see Uzbekistan, specifically the government president himself, challenging himself. Mm-hmm. And now what you're describing is also you see yourself being challenged by this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I don't want to underestimate sort of I appreciate that reform is difficult, that much of the agenda President Mirziyoyev has laid out is hard. It requires a lot of change and capacity building and changing mindsets. But I think the goodwill is there, and certainly the goodwill from the international community. When I met with representatives of the World Bank and the UN, everyone is really focused on how do we be partners. And this is an Uzbek project, an Uzbek experiment, but you have lots of partners and friends.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.